Hello, everybody, and welcome to CAS-CIAC's Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Conference. And my name is Melinda Liu, and I'm a sophomore at Amity Regional High School. And today I will be presenting on behalf of the Student Equity Advisory Board, which we will be talking about our actions in later presentations. So be sure to look for that. And I'll now pass it on to Connor to introduce the Unified Sports Program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Connor Willett. I'm in 11th grade and I attend Connecticut Regional High School. And on the behalf of the CAS-CIAC, the Unified Sports, the Student Equity Advisory Board, and the Student Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Planning Team, we welcome you to the 2021 Unity Starts With You Conference.
From growing up in a small suburb outside of Chicago on welfare to be televised internationally in 69 countries with 2.2 million viewers, Arik's high energy, experience, and passion and love for making a difference shows in his speaking, coaching, and writing so vividly. He has traveled across the United States and Canada, speaking to over 200,000 students in organizations such as DCA, FBLA, FCCLA, HOSA, and statewide student council conferences, to name a few. He has a commitment to make a difference in the lives of youth such that they take on their dreams, achieve them, and pass it on to others. He provides not only the inspiration, but the tangible tools to take a dream and make it a reality. He is an award-winning speaker, 5-time published author, and founder of the arikspeaks.com. Make some noise for the dream achiever, Arik Jackson.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much, Albert, for putting that word out there about everyone. Listen, I am super excited to be here with you all. How is everyone doing? Just type one word in the chat. Like, I literally want you to take your fingers. I know it's early in the morning. I know some of y'all don't want to be in class, or you're happy that, how many of y'all happy you out of class? Let's go ahead and start there. How about that? Come on, some more people. Type one word in the chat. How you feeling this morning? How you feeling? Loving it. We have awesome, fabulous, amazing. Who else? Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Makai. Let's see. Great. Okay, thriving. Okay, thriving. I see you. I love it. Y'all, listen, I am super excited to be here for this conference. Unity Starts With You. And let me just say, I know it's early in the morning for some of y'all, but I promise you, I got all y'all beat. It's like 9 o'clock your time. It is 6 a.m. where I am, and I've been up since like 4 something this morning. So it's about to go down, okay? So let's go ahead and get a couple of things out the way. First of all, as we're together, I want you to know I'm not getting ready to talk at you. Like, I'm not gonna just talk at you like you're just sitting there. And no, we're gonna turn up a little bit, and I am gonna ask you for some feedback today. So the first thing I'm gonna ask, while we're together today, if you hear something that you really like, you feeling it, it hits you, you're like, oh, I like that, that's what's going on, I want you all to type the word snaps in the chat. So let me see you all type snaps in the chat. Let me see what y'all got. Snaps in the chat. Hey, it actually rhymes. Snaps, kind of. So if you hear something as we're going through this whole process, I want y'all to do snaps. And basically what that's representing is, Arik, I'm hearing you. I'm loving it. I'm feeling it. Awesome sauce. That's what I'm talking about. All right, the next thing I'm going to ask you to do, if you happen to hear something and it hits your heart, it hits your soul, and it hits you so deep to literally you're like, shucky ducky quack quack, I like that, I want y'all to type the word yas in the chat. So not just yes, I want yas. So however you spell it, let's see how y'all spell it. I see one day a whole bunch of S's. Who else? Come on, type yas in the chat. Yas in the chat. Let's get some feedback. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so you all, listen, if you hear something and it really hits and you're like, I need everybody to know that, type yas in the chat. All right, that's what I am talking about. All right, next thing. Do I have your permission? And let me explain. Before I even ask for permission, how many of you all are sick and tired of fake and phony people? Just type me in the chat. If you're really sick and tired of really fake and phony people, type me in the chat. Just type me. Okay, so I'm in the right spot. I'm in the right spot. Here's the thing. I don't know about y'all, but we live in a society right now where like Instagram isn't even Instagram anymore. It's Insta lie because people just lied about stuff or they trying to make themselves look good. They're not keeping it real. Listen, I'm going to keep it real with you. So my question is, do I have your permission to keep it real with you today? And here's the thing, you may like some things that I say, you might not like some things that I say. I might even say something that gets up under your skin and kind of shakes you up a little bit, but trust me, after today's conference, if you don't walk away shook, ready to make action or take action, you missed the whole point. So I have your, so do I have your permission? If I have your permission, type yes in the chat. Yes, let me see yes, let me see, I need at least 15 yeses, come on. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome sauce. All right, you all, listen. I'm super excited, and I love when I get to be a part of not only hanging with CAS, but also an opportunity to have a message get out there. Unity starts with you. Literally. You. Literally. And it also starts with you figuratively. And today, how many of you all want to learn at least one thing that literally, when you walk away from your computer after this conference today, when you actually get out here, you go back to school, you get back into your classes or whatever, how many of you all want to learn at least one thing that you can do that can literally like reshape or change how the world is around you? How many of y'all want that skill? Type me if you want that skill, because here's the thing, I'm going to tell you what they have lined up for you today, y'all. I'm telling you, I am ready to get my information, and I've been doing this for a minute, but let me also let you know, you are never, ever, ever too old or whatever to stop learning. As a matter of fact, I have a saying. I oversee a program called Generation Leadership, and there's a saying that we have: the moment you stop growing as a leader is the moment you start dying as a leader. So you're going to be growing, and today is going to be your day of growth. Today is going to be your opportunity to learn one thing that you can literally take back to your classroom and have people stop talking about other people simply because they have a different skin tone or they have a different capability. You'll be able to take away one thing that literally, instead of wishing to see the change in the world, you get to be the change in the world. You get to be the living, breathing example of what Gandhi says. Be the change you wish to see in the world. How many of y'all want some of that action today? Type a 4 in the chat. If you want some of that action, type a 4 or push your 4s up, whatever you want to do. Y'all, so if that is you, I promise you, just for the next couple of hours, hang with us, pull out your notebook, take some notes. I invite each and every one of you to be looking for one thing. And listen, for those of you who are like, I'm going to get 10, I'm going to get 20, I'm going to get 57, I'm going to get 2,560,000. No, you don't have to do all that. Like literally, if you just get one, it will make a huge, huge difference in the world. You don't believe me? Let me put it to you this way. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was someone, he was like the father of the civil rights movement, and he led the civil rights movement. And there was a lot of work that was done in the civil rights movement. He gave several speeches, did a lot of marches, had a lot of talks. But here's what I want you to get. It was Rosa Parks that took one action to spark a revolution. One action, and all that action was she didn't give up her seat, and it sparked a revolution. My question is, what is the one thing you will learn today that will become the one action in your life that sparks a revolution around you? I don't care about your background. I don't care about where you're from. I don't care about how old you are. We get to be that in the world. We get to be that. And listen, the shirt that I'm wearing is like dreamer crossed out with doer under it. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King says, I have a dream. And those words are so powerful. And I love, as a matter of fact, I call myself the dream achiever. But listen, there comes a point in time when you're someone, especially if you're going to build unity in your school, in your home, in your church, in your city, in your state, in this country, you're going to have to step out of the dream. You can hold the dream, but then start doing what it takes. How many of you all are ready to learn 3 things that can take you from a dreamer to a doer, from a doer to an achiever? If that's you, type 1 in the chat. Just type 1 in the chat. Let me see what y'all got. All right, I'm in the right place. All right, let's go ahead and go. This is how we're going to do the context of it all today. We're going to talk about the ripple effect. The ripple effect. Somebody type ripple in the chat. Everybody type ripple. Listen. Come on, type ripple, R-I-P-P-L-E. It's very simple. There we go. Awesome. That's what I'm talking about. Here's the thing about a ripple. A ripple is where maybe an action or maybe you or maybe something happens and it starts to affect everything else around them. I want you to consider, like, if maybe you're at a pond and you throw a rock in the pond and you see these ripples, not just one. How weird would that be if you like threw a rock and you just saw one ripple? I would like walk really fast away because I'd be like, something wrong with this water. I don't know what's in it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening, but it's several ripples. I want you all to consider that we are all people who causes ripples throughout the day. And whether you want to accept it or embrace it or not, especially at this conference, at this time in history, you're always creating a ripple effect. Always. Whether you're conscious to it or you're blind to it, you're always creating a ripple effect. And today, my goal is to have you create those ripple effects on purpose. Create those ripple effects that literally, when you walk into a room, people shift. People start to look at things differently. People start to be like, man, how can I be a difference like that? Today, I'm going to give you the tools to where literally your ripple effect can have an impact, not just on you, but on your little brother, your little sister, your big brother, your big sister, your parents, your family, your school. Y'all, whether you like it or not, people are always watching you. And especially if you're at a conference about unity, people are always going to be watching you. I used to be afraid, why y'all looking at me? I don't understand. I need to shave my head. I'm not looking, I used to do all that. But then here's the thing. When you realize if people are watching you, here's my whole thing. If you're going to watch, let me go ahead and give you a show. Let me go ahead and be an example for you. And you don't even have to go to Fandango to get these tickets. Like literally, you can see me. Here's the thing. I know people are watching me all the time. And I get to be that ripple effect in the world. So when we look at the ripple effect, let's go ahead and dig into it. First of all, the ripple effect starts with you. It starts with you. Just like unity starts with you, the ripple effect starts with you. And in order for you to be someone to cause a positive ripple effect, a positive impact in the world, it's going to require you to do you, be you unapologetically, period. How many of y'all know some leaders right now? And literally, you know that the only reason why they talking the way they talk, they're doing what they do, they're acting the way they act is because there's people around them. But then when certain people aren't around them, all of a sudden they change and they become somebody else. How many of y'all know some people like that? I don't even want to say leaders. Let's just say people. They get around this group of people, they act a certain way. They get around this group of people and act a certain way. They get around this group of people and they start to act a certain way. How many of y'all have ever witnessed that? How many of y'all have a friend right now? You love your friend. Your friend is like, mwah, mwah, mwah. You love your friend. But sometimes you're really confused by your friend because when your friend comes around the corner or jumps on a Zoom or something like that, you're asking yourself, okay, which one am I going to get today? Am I going to get the fun one, the goofy one, the one who's just angry and mad for no reason, or the one who got an attitude? How many of y'all got a friend like that? Just go ahead and type yas or snaps in the chat if you have a friend like that. Now, here's what I'm going to say to you. Number one, if you got a friend like that, it's time for you to do a reevaluation of your friends. That's number one. But number two, that's an example of who not to be in the world. Listen, when we say unity starts with you, when we say the ripple effect starts with you, it starts by you embracing you. You loving who you are, you being okay with the skin that you're in, you're being okay with how you look, you're being okay with where things are. And listen, if you're anything like me, and during COVID, now see, most of y'all are like in high school and stuff, and y'all got metabolisms that will literally like burn through the earth's crust. But my metabolism, COVID came up, and I got the COVID weights. I promise you, I don't think I've been to my refrigerator in so many times in the day until we were in COVID. And like literally, I would just go open the refrigerator door and just stand there and look. And depending on what it was, if I saw some bread and some cheese, I'm like, ooh, if I toasted this bread, put some cheese on it, put a little sea salt on top, I'm a chef. Y'all, I had too many of those chef moments because I literally picked up at least 30 pounds during COVID. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But here's the reason why I'm bringing this up. Initially, when I picked up all that weight, it was like the heaviest I've been in my life, and picked up all the weight. But then I had a moment where I just didn't feel good about myself. I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. And what I started to notice during that time is, yeah, I was out there, but I was not fully putting myself out there. I was not fully being all the way out there because I didn't want people to look at me differently, judge me differently, have certain things to say about me and all that. But then I realized, I'm like, you know what, Arik, it does not matter how much COVID weight you've picked up. You are here to make a difference in the world. So if that means you happen to be an extra 30 pounds while you're doing it, then so be it. Just get you some bigger, hotter shirts. Get you some more things. Listen, how can we expect people in the world to accept and celebrate us if we don't accept and celebrate ourselves? A part of unity, the party starts with you. It all starts with you. And that's why I say, I have something that I say, do you and do you unapologetically. Stop apologizing for who you are. Stop apologizing for your background. Stop apologizing for how you grew up or the area that you grew up in. Listen, celebrate that. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, y'all, literally. In high school, there was a point in my high school career where I would go to school, have to catch a bus. And sometimes I would my thought would be, who's fighting this morning? Because there would be fights that would break out on the bus. I have literally been around when gunfire has erupted. I have literally had two people run up on me and literally put a gun to my head. But here's the thing. Though I don't say that I enjoy that happened, I know that's a part of who I am, and I will never hide it because of the fact when you do you and do you unapologetically, when you are yourself, when you are owning all of this, even if it's 30 pounds extra, when you're earning all of this, you're loving all of this, you're celebrating all of this, you get to be an example to people out there who are lost, to people out there who want to accept themselves, but they just don't know how. To people who want to celebrate themselves, but they just don't know how. People who really want to do themselves unapologetically, but maybe because of a capability that they do not have, they don't put themselves out there. Maybe there's someone who, because they may be a darker complexion and with everything that's going on in the world right now, they're afraid to show up, but then they see you and you embrace you. Listen. The ripple effect starts with you. Unity starts with you. And my invitation to you is, how do you get to be that change in the world? How do you get to be that person that when you walk in a room, people are inspired by you? Look, again, it's about accepting all of it, all of you. One thing, and I can't even say it's not a proud factor or anything like that. But listen, growing up, I was not like the the most studliest dude. I wasn't walking around talking about, what's up, let's go play basketball and let's do sports. No, I was more interested in the arts and theater and dance and things like that. And because of that, the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was like, if you were interested in something other than sports, if you were someone who preferred to hang around your mom or something, you were considered a punk. You were looked down upon. You were talked about. And y'all, I'm not proud to admit this, but this is a part of me accepting who I am. Y'all, there were times because I was different, people would gang up on me, and I can't tell you how many fights I got in. Not because I did something wrong, not because I said something wrong, not because I was being wrong to anybody, but because I was different. Here's what I want to say to you. Difference, or being different, is not a handicap. It's not anything that holds you back. As a matter of fact, it's an advantage. It's an advantage because you get to show up unapologetically, embracing all of that. And even though you know you're different, people will see that no matter how different you are, you own it. Please know that when you walk into a room, and when I say room, I mean both literally walk into a room and figuratively walk into a room like you did here. There is the opportunity for you to be an example of what it's like to embrace your differences. Listen, I know I'm different. And you know what? I'm so grateful. Because I don't have to try to be like someone else. I don't have to be a second copy to somebody else. I get to be myself. And it's very interesting because back then, the differences that people could not understand about me are the very things that have me stand out in my career now, that have me stand out in my family, that have me stand out in my community, that have me stand out in the world. You want to cause a ripple effect? Celebrate you first. Celebrate the differences that you bring to the table. Celebrate the diversity that you bring. Y'all, I'm going to put it to you like this. The world is a box of 20 chicken nuggets. And y'all, I'm just going to tell y'all, that's probably why I gained overweight, because McDonald's still stayed open and that was kind of my thing. But just Linda, listen, just stick with me on this one. The world is a box of chicken nuggets. And what if everybody was trying to be a barbecue sauce? How fun would that be? I mean, it'd be good for a little bit. But then think about it. Somebody is the barbecue sauce. You're the sweet and sour sauce. Someone is the honey mustard. Someone is the ranch. Someone is the ketchup. Someone is just the napkin. Now, this, y'all, this will go down in history in my 17 years of talking and speaking. This will go down in history, probably one of the worst examples of diversity. But I really want y'all to get that we get to bring our differences to the table and celebrate them. Celebrate yourself. If you're different and you're not like everybody else in the room, don't hide it, show it, own it, embrace it, because it's an opportunity. It is an opportunity for someone to see something different. Listen, if you look at my close circle of friends, I laugh because people will probably look at me, if they're definitely not in diversity and inclusion, they will look at my group of friends and be like, okay, were you confused? Like, were you just unsure? Like, help me understand this. Like, I don't get it. My friends make up different races, different backgrounds, different religions, different experiences in their life. And you know what? My life is greater because of it. So my question is, if you truly want to start that ripple effect, are you willing to embrace and celebrate you? So that's step number one to unity, starting with you. And that's step number one to the ripple effect. So now we've talked about the beginning of it. Now let's talk about how we get to affect other people. A few years ago, I went to speak at this conference. And if you know anything about R.A. Jackson, I'm a big family boy. Like, I love my family. Like, I live in California. Most of my family still lives in the Midwest right now. And as a matter of fact, like, everybody, my birthday is coming up and they're like, what are you doing for your birthday? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, you know what? I'm coming home. I want to come home to some good old barbecue ribs, some mama's potato salad. And I want to like hang with my niece. And like, I want to wrestle with my nephew, Amar, who he's like getting old. And y'all just pray for me because I might not make it through that match. Because, you know, he rocking a 6-pack. I'm rocking a 32-pack. But I'm a big family person. And so for this particular event some years ago, I ended up taking my grandmother. And if you know anything about me and my grandmother, that's my girl. When I tell you, even just thinking about her makes me emotional right now because she has been a pillar. She's been a rock. She's been solid in my life. And so she saw me go through the process of like leaving corporate America, starting into speaking, the hardships, the trials of it, and then it just shooting off. And I made my grandmother proud. Like, how many of y'all, just type me in the chat if you're somebody who loves to make people in your family proud of you and what you're up to. Like, if that's you, just type me in the chat. Like, just me, just type me. So it's for me, it's like my grandmother, I had an opportunity to take her with me to go do a keynote, and I was excited. We get to the venue. As soon as I get there, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Ari, so great to see you. It's awesome. Who is this? I'm like, this is my grandmother. You know, and they're like, oh my gosh, your grandmother. They totally forgot about me. They started taking care of my grandmother. If you ever want to get to my grandmother's heart, get her some Dunkin' Donuts coffee. That's all I'm going to say. Because she's going to love you for life. She might think you're funny looking, but if you give her coffee, she's just going to think you're beautiful. Like, that is just my grandmother. So it's like me, and then these people are like clamoring around my grandmother. Now, the event that we were at, about 97% of the population was Caucasian, was white, which is, I don't have an issue with at all. As a matter of fact, come on, let's get in here, let's turn up. And so they're all clamoring around my grandmother. I go out, I do my speech. Literally, my speech is like so good. I remember during my speech, I literally tripped and jumped right back up during my speech, but it was like this amazing moment. And then after my speech was done, I'm looking for my grandmother. I don't see her in the audience anywhere. Okay. Let me go by the bathroom. Okay. Don't see her in the bathroom. Okay. All right. So literally, I'm like looking different places. I have different students going into the women's bathroom to check to see if they see my grandmother. My grandmother is nowhere to be found. Now I'm losing it a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, my family is going to be so mad at me because I took my grandmother to a speaking engagement and I lost her. Like, my family is not gonna like love this. And so something said, go look in the car. And I remember going out to the car and I'm like, why am I even going out here? But I get to the car and my grandmother is sitting in the car. And I'm like, and I call my grandmother, I call her mother. I'm like, mother, why are you sitting out here? Why are you sitting out here? And she said, all right, I told you, I don't like white people. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, first of all, I was offended. I'm like, I brought you out here and this is your whole thing? Like, this is your whole reason for sitting out in the car? And I just remember feeling some type of way about it. I was disappointed. I was hurt. I went in, I wrapped things up with my client. I came back out in the car and I'm not gonna lie, I was in my feels. I was in my feels because I'm thinking to myself, I trusted you. I brought you with me. And this is what you're gonna do? This is how you're gonna show up? But here's where my life changed. We were on our way back to her house and I'm driving her there. And for the first time, my grandmother is a very strong woman. She's a very proud woman. But for the first time, my grandmother opened up about her whole experience. And my grandmother, unfortunately, was a witness to some of the most heinous things that happened in the past. What I didn't know is that our family was close to the family of Emmett Till. What I did not know is that my grandmother was actually at that funeral. My grandmother had an experience in her life that jaded her, unfortunately. But here's where I'm going with this. When she told me that, I didn't make her wrong. I didn't argue with her. I just accepted that was her experience. If you're going to be someone who's a part of the ripple effect, everyone is not going to be like you. Everyone is not going to process or think or respond the same way as you. And if we're going to create unity, it's not only about accepting, embracing, and celebrating you. It's about accepting, embracing, and celebrating people who, in some cases, their ideals may be way different. Where they stand and where you stand may be totally different. And that was the crossroad that me and my grandmother came to. And yes, my heart broke when she told me about it. But believe it or not, in that moment, I didn't say, oh, well, I'm going to feel the same way. No, I stood. And I was like, I'm sorry that was your experience. And in that moment, I realized, you know what? It's going to be up to me to build bridges between people, to heal past hurts. And so I continued being the person who accepted, embraced, celebrated people who were very different than me, who didn't look like me, didn't act like me, didn't even have the same beliefs as me. Here's what I learned through that. Because after that moment with my grandmother, I continued being the example. I continued being the change I wished to see in the world. I continued to be that. And because I did that, throughout that time, over a span of years, my grandmother's whole, how do I want to word it? Like, her jadedness melted away. Since that time, I've been able to bring my grandmother around, and like literally, like she has grown in a way that has been amazing. Why? Because she saw how I was showing up. She saw that I was open to everybody. She saw that I saw everyone as a human. And yes, we all have experiences and backgrounds and things that have happened to us and things that we're recognized for. And I am not like taking away from that. I'm not. And I still get to celebrate you as a human. There are people watching you right now, and they're waiting for your example. They're waiting to see how you're going to respond. They're waiting to see if someone gets in your face or someone throws something at you because of your differences, because of the diversity, or because you're trying to include everybody, or because you're standing that everyone has a fair opportunity. They're going to sit back and watch you. They're going to see how you react. They're going to see how you respond. And there's going to be two opportunities. Opportunity number one is when you do come to something like that and then you jab out, you lose it, you just be like, oh, you're not like me. You're going to be like, yep, see, all of that was talk. Or you get to create that opportunity that I created for my grandmother. You get to stand and be like, you know what? I don't care what's going on. This is where I stand, and I accept everyone for who they are. That's how we get to be united. You get to give them an example of what it is to live in unity, of what it is to embrace diversity, of what it is to encourage inclusion and equity. You get to be that. Don't get it twisted. You get to be that. So how many of you all would like to be that type of person? If you want to be that type of person that's out there, and by the way that you live, by the way that you show up, how you interact with things, how many of y'all just want to be someone where you walk into a room and people are just simply inspired by how you show up and how you interact. If you want to be that type of person, type sign me up. I know that's a lot to type, but type sign me up in the chat. Y'all, this is a part of the ripple effect. The ripple effect, yes, and in some cases, you're gonna have to take a stand. You're gonna have to speak against some things. You're gonna have to be like, no, that's not right. That's not fair. No, we get to stand for humanity. Period. Like if we boil it all down, it's embracing, accepting, celebrating humanity. That's the opportunity that we get. So that's part 2 of the ripple effect. Last thing I'm going to say about this, when it comes to the ripple effect, there are small ripples and there are tidal wave type ripples. How many of y'all want to be a tidal wave type ripple? Just type tidal wave. I think it's TIDAL. Tidal, type TITL. Tidal T, yeah, that's spelled right. Just type tidal wave in the chat. TIDAL, tidal wave. If you want to be that. Listen, I'm going to share this with you all. And by the way, I'm just curious, outside of people who are on the board, how many of you all have ever seen me speak before? Just type me in the chat. Not if you're on the board, don't type it. Bob, I know. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Ain't y'all on the board? Like, help me out with that. All right, y'all. So here's why. There's something that I talk about, and it's talking about the 110 principle. Here's the thing. How many of you all know? How many of you all just have in your mind? It's important that we give 100%. Like, just type 100. If you hear that all the time, you know that some type of way. Like, just type 100. 100. How you spell honey? 100 in the chat. Here's the thing. 100% is beautiful. I love the idea of giving 100%. But here's where I'm going to say and challenge you. Over the past year and a half, we have seen people give 100%, like their 100% effort to wreaking havoc, dividing people, injustices. It's been a lot. And by the way, let me go ahead and just put this in right here. The fact that you're here right now, after a pandemic that something historically, y'all, I am 44 years old. And historically, I have never experienced anything to this effect my entire life. Now, the closest thing to it, and I'm not, and please don't hear this as I'm dumbing it down, because our country really had some healing to do after 9/11. I remember that day. I remember I was in my office. I remember I worked downtown Chicago. I remember them evacuating downtown Chicago because they were afraid Chicago was going to be the next hit. Since that time, the pandemic, y'all, this is something totally different. So I'm bringing this up to say the fact that you are here right now, the fact that you are even interested or wanting to be a part of unity, inclusion, diversity, equity, that speaks volumes about the type of leader you are, not just person, the type of leader that you are, because you do realize that there are people out here talking about, oh, we need to get better. We need to make sure we get united and we need to connect and but they sit at home like watching HBO Max and eating Cheetos and they're not doing anything. The fact that you are here right now, as a matter of fact, if you're here right now, I want you to give yourself snaps in the chat for the fact that you're here standing for unity, diversity, equity, inclusion. Just type snaps in the chat, because here's the thing, it is not common. It is not common for people, unless it's directly affecting or directly impacting them, for people to take time out of their schedule to be a part of this. So for me, I give you all mad props for that. And while you're here, we might as well give you some tools. And the tool that I want to give you all is the tool of giving 110%. Listen, there are a lot of people out there wreaking havoc in the world, trying to tear things down. And they're giving their 100%. So what makes us think that if we just give 100, that it's enough? No, if we give 100 to match their 100, we're just canceling it out. But if we give 110%, we'll cancel that out and we'll leave people with the change we wish to see in the world. We leave people with a new idea of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. We leave people with the willingness to put their foot in the journey of unity. So the reason why I bring this up 110%, because listen, yes, you're gonna have to push a little harder. Yes, you're gonna sweat a little more. Yes, it's gonna feel uncomfortable at times, but I'm saying this because this has been a living example for me in my life in making a difference in the world. Literally, a few years ago, I was invited to be a student leadership coach at this event. And I get to the training, I'm thinking that they're about to pull out charts and posters and stuff about leadership. So this girl got to the front of the room. She walked to the front of the room. She gets up there. She's like, hello, everybody. I'm like, oh God, shoot me now, girl. What? How many Red Bulls did you have? And I'm thinking to myself, did I just take off work? And to hear this girl, and she gets up there and she's like, so today I'm going to teach you all a cheer. And the name of this cheer, it's called, oh my God, I love it so much. It's Baby Shark, okay? So everybody do me a favor, put your hands up like this. And I know I can't see everybody, but I'm just gonna trust that I got 110% people in the room. So go ahead, put your hands up like this. I'm not gonna do this by myself. I see you. And here we go. Baby Shark, Baby Shark. I'm looking at this lady like, I don't know what drugs you're doing, but you want me to learn a stupid cheer about a baby shark, mama shark, daddy shark, grandma shark, grandpa shark. I went for a swim. I saw the shark attacked. I lost my arm. I lost my leg. I called 911. 911 said it's too late. Happy shark? I don't think so. But then it clicked in my head. Ark, you said everything you're going to do, you're going to give it 110%. Y'all, I learned that cheer, Baby Shark. It was the hottest thing walking around campus. Everybody else was doing Baby Shark like this. They're like, Baby Shark. No, me and my crew, gangster. We took Baby Shark and we snapped off. This was us. Baby Shark, Baby Shark. Mama Shark. Mama Shark. Daddy. Yeah, I mean, y'all, we snapped. We snapped so hard. We got like requests at lunch. It was like a radio station. There's this girl that came over to me. She was like, oh my God, are you the group that does Baby Shark? I was like, yep. Y'all, I was chewing on a double cheeseburger, but me and my crew, we showed them up with Baby Shark. Got so good at doing it, I ended up taking it home to my nephew, Amar. And Amar, my sister and I, we got a place together because Amar's dad wasn't in the picture and I just wanted to be the father figure in his life. And I taught him Baby Shark. We were either singing Baby Shark or the SpongeBob song. It was one or the other. We were always alternating between the two. And one day we're in the grocery store. I'm in the grocery store. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to have for dinner. And here comes Amar with his big-headed self. How many of y'all got a little sister, little brother, little cousin, somebody in your family who has like the biggest head? It just doesn't seem like it should belong to their body. Like literally, if they lean forward, it's going to take them over. Like that was Amar. And so here he comes with his big-headed self. He's like, Uncle Arik, let's do Baby Shark. I'm like, dude, we're standing in the frozen food section. No. He knew my speech, and the speech that I deliver most of the time is called Don't Be Scared. So Amar, he was like, oh man, my Uncle Arik is scared. And he turns and walks away. I look at him, I'm like, get over here. We're standing by the frozen pizza. We kick in and scream. This older lady, she walks into the aisle. She sees us. I have never seen an older lady do the moonwalk so quick. She got up out that aisle so quick. She took off. Next thing you know, I hear security aisle 8. I look up. I see me and Amar are in aisle 8. I'm like, Amar, we going to jail for doing Baby Shark. Amar looked at me. He was like, No! I was like, bruh, it's your fault. But we didn't get caught though, because we ran out, right? A few years after that, Amar and his mom, they were living in Madison, Wisconsin. I got a position in Atlanta at a law firm, and I'm sitting in my office, my phone rings, I pick it up like I always do. Good afternoon, law office of Strobert. This is Arik speaking. How can I help you? Arik, it's your mom. Oh, hey, mom. In that moment, my mom begins to tell me that morning, on his way to school, as Amar was crossing the street, he was hit in oncoming traffic. The car that hit him hit so hard, it literally threw him up in the air. He came down head first into the windshield. The car slammed on brakes. It threw his body for several yards. And my mom says to me, Arik, we don't know if Amar will be able to walk again. Can you come? Y'all, that was my Amar. The one who I raised like my son Amar, the one who had dreams of being a football player. I get to the hospital. When I get there, like my mom, she's holding it together. She's the strength of the family. My sister looks like all hope has been stolen from her. But then I look over to Amar, and he has so many tubes going in and out of him. He has on this big chest brace, and his face is swollen. But what throws me off is they have his wrists cuffed to the bed. I'm with Amar, and my mom tells me that he doesn't respond to pain very well. I'm like, Mom, I got this, we're good. And literally 2 o'clock in the morning, with 2 o'clock in the morning came the pain. And Amar's lying there, and all of a sudden he starts. Amar, come on, big man. Uncle Arik is here. You can fight this. We got this. The pain gets so bad that literally Amar is almost like fighting and thrashing around in the bed. And I'm losing it because nothing I'm saying is working. And the only thing I could think to say in that moment, just randomly, was, Amar, if you hear me. Baby shark, baby shark. Amar stops. And he slowly turns his head towards my voice, and he opens his eyes for the first time in days, all because of a stupid cheer I decided to teach him because I was giving 110%. Y'all, here's why I'm sharing this with you. There is something that you may learn today, that you can learn today, that literally, it could be that one action that you take back into your life and make a difference in somebody's world. Will there be an Amar moment in your life? And will you be ready? And here's what I'm gonna say. The difference between creating a ripple and a tidal wave is the amount of effort you give. So if you're giving it 110%, that's where the tidal waves come. By the way, Amar, he graduated from the class of 2016, and he walking around right now with a six-pack like nothing ever happened. He's good. So y'all, unity starts with you. And how you get to infuse this with people around you and in your life is you get to be the ripple effect. First of all, celebrating, accepting, embracing who you are. The next step is celebrating, embracing, accepting who the people are around you, no matter their background or experiences. And third, it's giving that 110% to create the tidal wave. So if you are someone who's willing to create a huge ripple effect, just type in the chat, I am. Let me see who you are. Zach, Wayne, Melinda, Heather, Makai, Savannah. Yeah. So if you are, you're in the right place, y'all. My name is Art Jackson. Thank you so much for your time. Y'all, stick around. It's about to go down. So I don't know who I'm going to hang out with y'all all day. Am I turning it over to you, Melinda? I forget who I'm turning it over to. Who am I turning it over to?
Me.
All right. Thank you, Melinda. I'll see y'all around, okay?
That was, I just want to say that was amazing, and I really took something inspiring from that, and I hope that everybody else was extremely inspired by the keynote that Arik just gave. Snaps to everybody. So we will be taking a quick 10-minute break and be coming back at 10:10. for a panelist introduction by Kruti, so stay tuned for that, and we will get started with our break right now. Kind of trickle back in and restart our sessions, which will begin at 10:10. But we just want to take a quick kind of survey question for everybody who's watching right now. Could you please type in the chat where you go to school or the town you live in, and also how many people are watching with you? So if you're watching in a classroom, how many people in the classroom are you watching it with? And so we'll just get those answers. Chat. Take some time for everybody to answer that question. So while we're doing that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, or who's going to kind of lead our next session. So Kruti will be kind of introducing our next panelist and facilitating our panel discussion with several of our amazing guests that we have on this call right now. So Kruti, like me, is in high school, and we are both part of the Student Equity Advisory Board. And I will now hand it over to Kruti to give a quick introduction about herself and introduce the panelists.
Thank you, Melinda. Hi, everybody. My name is Kruti Thersandhya. I'm a sophomore at Windsor High School. And as Melinda mentioned, I'm also a part of the Student Equity and Advisory Board. And I am so excited to lead this panel discussion and moderate it. First of all, Arik Jackson, thank you for that amazing, inspirational, and motivational talk with us that made me feel really inspired, and I'm definitely going to bring that back to Windsor High School and spread it to my peers and implement it. Let's start off by introducing our panelists for today's panel. First up, we have Darren Haynes. He is the sports director and anchor for WUSA, the CBS affiliated TV station in Washington, D.C. Next, we have Elsie Gonzalez, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Capital Region Education Council. And then we have Jennifer LaCapra, the Arts and Wellness Department Chair and Head of Unified Sports Coach, the Head Unified Sports Coach and Best Buddies Advisor at Oxford High School. So thank you to the panelists for taking time to do this panel with us today. And if you could turn your cameras on, and I'll start asking the questions. So the first question that we're gonna ask, or I wanna ask you, is can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What is your background and what was your path to leadership? And how did you end up where you are today?
Would you like me to start, or do you have someone?
No, you can start.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a phys ed and health teacher at Oxford High School, as well as a department head of arts and wellness, as was mentioned. I did teach special education for my first 3 years of teaching, and then I switched over to PE, and I've been teaching overall now for 19 years. I coached varsity softball and JV basketball at OEHS before I started the unified sports team here 9 years ago. And I was introduced to school-based unified sports while I was a PE teacher in New Haven. And I went to one event and I was hooked from then on. And I knew that once I got to Oxford High School, that was my goal, to create a program once I was able. And here we are today, almost 10 years with the program.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Hi folks, Elsie Gonzalez here. My pronouns are she, her, or Aja. I am as Kruti said, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at CREC, Capital Region Education Council in Hartford. My role here is fairly new. I started at the agency at the height of the pandemic. So most of my year here at Craig has been virtual, as you all probably have been virtual in your schools as well. So I am the daughter of the Laureano Robles family. I was born in Puerto Rico and I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut. I attended Harvard Public Schools and went to undergrad at Lesley in Boston, and then did graduate work at Columbia at New York City. And I really, like in my leadership, my journey has been a virtue of sort of spirit and heart, honestly, because a lot of my experiences in undergraduate school was where I learned a lot about myself and about my identity and how, and connecting with people from my high school to undergraduate school. They helped affirm my identities as a person, and that really connected my passion to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I've been in leadership for DEI. That's short for diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. You'll probably hear me say that a lot, with different leaders across different organizations. And my most recent connection, I guess I want to make the sports connection for this conversation, is that I worked really closely with the athletic department at the University of Connecticut. I worked there in their diversity office and helped to establish co-curricular experiences with our athletes, student athletes, and help them really learn more about what it means, to be who they are as individuals and centering their identities on the field and off the field. So that work has really been very special to me and something that I bring in all of my experiences in the organizations that I'm at. Currently here at CREC, I've worked really closely with our director of athletics and bring some workshops to student athletes at the high schools and help create restorative spaces and circles for conversations that center who they are as people and help them grow in their skills as leaders on and off the court.
I guess I'll go. So, I mean, you heard about who I am as a sportscaster. I'm currently actually in the middle of work covering an NFL OTAs, they call it. So I'm at the Washington football team's practice right now. But I've been in the business for 16 years all around the country, graduated from Wayne State University. I'm currently the sports director at WSA in Washington, D.C. Big on diversity, big on definitely having men, women, people of different shades of the rainbow at my job. Off the record, because HR shouldn't know, I hired a female sports reporter anchor on purpose, because I can speak on behalf of how a guy feels and whatever, but I don't have that women's perspective. And so this lady, Charlotte McBride, provides that for me. But I'm happy to be here. I'm originally from Woodbridge, Connecticut, went to Amity High School. So happy to be here, you guys.
Thank you for those introductions. Our next question is, how did you become interested in advocating for social issues? Who or what inspired you?
Well, I've been interested in social issues from a young age. My father was an athletic director at a school that always held Special Olympic events, and he got me involved probably around the age of about 7 or 8 years old. So I knew right from then that I wanted to work somehow with individuals with disabilities. So I feel that at that time in my life, that's when I truly first became inspired to really have inclusion of all as the forefront of whatever I did.
I guess we can go in the same order to not confuse things. So I began to learn more, as I shared earlier, about who I am. So I grew up in an evangelical home. So my parents were ministers and leaders at our church. And being part of an evangelical community is really centered around helping communities in need. And so social issues around disparities, poverty were something that's really close to my family values. But then as I went to college and in undergraduate school, I really began to learn more about my identity. I was a resident assistant on campus and was, that position on a campus gives you a lot of training. And one of the trainings was about diversity, equity, and inclusion, different social identities, the impact of our identities in our conversations with people. And that really grew me closer to professionals in student affairs that care deeply about the co-curricular experiences of students. And I honestly was enamored about that. I love school and I love learning, but I also wanted to learn about life, about how to be me and about how to, bring my authentic self to all spaces. And really, that centered and highlighted my passion for students of color on campus and drew me into this career and helping to work with students who have not had the same access or the same voices at the table that other students have, and those experiences really have shaped how I continue to advocate for social racial justice issues in my career. I honestly, I am inspired by scholars like Dr. Beverly Tatum, who wrote the book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? And authors like Toni Morrison, activists, civil rights activists like Diane Nash, who teach us about principles of nonviolence and how to really center race in conversations without being, without being seen as someone who is, harming or threatening. And also activists like Dolores Huerta, who, were really passionate about the rights of people and, listening to those voices and centering a sense of belonging of who you are everywhere that you go. So those are definitely books that continue to inspire the work that I do.
Last question is a target over here. So I'm listening to everybody, and for me, it's sort of a little bit different because being actually from New Haven, Connecticut, and then moving to Woodbridge, I went to a high school where it was mostly white, and I realized a lot now as an adult on the things that wasn't taught to me, the true history, my background, and when it was Black history, it was Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman. But when there's Black history literally all around you, and it was sort of like just the top of really just the surface of all the history that I should have known but wasn't taught to me. So that inspired me to talk about racial issues and everything that I went through in high school, from where there were like 7 Black kids we used to hang by the elevator. They used to call it the ghetto. Some of those things make me now go back to the school to talk about those social issues. I think one of the other bigger ones that I've done so many commentaries on television, and actually won an Emmy for 2 Emmys, but for 2 different subjects. One was the N-word, just talking about how bad the N-word actually is, to make people create awareness of it. And then the other one is I'm a victim of police brutality. And I'll never forget when that time happened, and all of a sudden they realized what I did for a living, and they're like, "Yeah, what do you do for your job?" And I said, I'm a sports center anchor at ESPN. That was at that particular time. And they started treating me differently. And so I look at all the people, and now we're on the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's death. And why does someone maybe have to be a sports anchor or have maybe a high profile job to be treated a certain way? There are a lot of people in the community, if it's Hartford or New Haven, that they're trying their best to try to go to school, try to go to college, but because they don't have maybe that job, they're treated differently, or just by the way they look. So that one is a big one for me, on a reason why I talk about a lot of social issues. It's a reason why I was part of the protest last year in Washington, D.C., dealt with a lot of the tear gas, the photo op that President Trump did. I was there for that. I saw it all. And I wouldn't change anything in the world to continue to fight for social issues.
Darren, I just want to thank you for sharing your part of your story. And I want to echo your sentiment about, I guess, relearning what we've been taught. Like we have been told lies, right, in our K through 12 education. And like you, like in undergrad, I was very frustrated of like all the information that I did not know. Still to this day, right? Like I'm continuing to read and learn about like my history and the struggle of, you know, of really like what this country is about, right? And the lies that have been told to us, and unlearning all of that has been really difficult, right? Because our own biases are like inherited by like we call it like this is the water we're all swimming in, right? We're all impacted by systemic racism and oppression, you know, from different lenses, of course, but then that's also supported by the stories and the education that we were given. And then now undoing that is just so hard. It's like, you know, I tell folks like, it's like you're writing with your right hand, you're right-handed, and all you do is with your right hand, and all of a sudden you have to do everything with another hand. Oh, you can't do it at all. Find a new different way to communicate. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And it's what I fight with every single day, especially working with, you know, executives who, you know, who identify as white cis men, right? Like leading and in power, and those structures are very deeply rooted and all of that education that needs to be redone and transformed, in my opinion.
Well, that's great that you mentioned all of that. I when you're to add, in addition to all of that, comes the change in the mindset of what is normal. And we grew up thinking like, hey, this was normal. This is normal education. And then we realized, whoa, that's not normal. You guys left out so much of the history of our normal life, our normal history. And I do this all the time at work. And I'm very, I guess, politely aggressive at work. But I had a situation, and this was at ESPN. I can name some here too. But that the biggest one, there's a golf tournament called the Open. They play it across the pond, and they had this competition like, can you name all the members of the Beatles? And I can't name all the members of the Beatles. And literally,
You're not alone.
I was literally crucified the fact that I could not name all the members of the Beatles. And I told them, I was like, my parents didn't listen to the Beatles. They listened to the Temptations. You know, they didn't listen to that. And so I then was joking with them. I was like, okay, well, name a group that was maybe equivalent to the Beatles around the same time that maybe had people who look like me. And they mentioned the Jackson 5. So I was like, okay, name all the original members of the Jackson 5. You know, they said Michael and Tito. I think someone said Jermaine. Then someone said Randy Jackson. Now, there is a Randy Jackson, but the Randy Jackson they were talking about was the Randy Jackson who used to host American Idol. So they couldn't name all of them. And so what we realized at that moment was changing the mindset of what people think is normal, and our differences should be embraced rather than scrutinized. And so I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do right now is create that awareness that it's okay to be different. It is normal to be different. Or should I say being different is normal.
Thank you for that. Our next question is, what is your primary motivation? What makes you keep going despite all the obstacles in front of you?
All right, well, I would say definitely my students are my main motivation. I want to make sure that I give them all the opportunities I can to have fun, to be involved, to form and grow friendships with one another. That is my primary motivation. And, you know, this year has been filled with obstacles for some more than others. So again, just saying that my students, they are my motivation to help us all get through these obstacles. I want them to feel comfortable, to feel safe, and to feel accepted.
I guess I'll go. There's a lot that keeps me motivated. I look at just myself in the current state that the world is in right now. You know, what does the future look like for me? You know, I have a daughter who's 8 years old who has right now no clue what the real world is really like. I mean, right now it's Barbie dolls and TikTok for her. Monitor TikTok. I monitor that. So there's if going back to, what we're mentioning about our history, a history is a measurement of the past and insurance of the future. And what our ancestors did for us got us to this particular point. So what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to leave behind to make sure your kids are good or their kids are okay? And I love the way this generation is, the Gen Zs and the younger millennials are working right now. I'm with you guys 100%. I'm a millennial. I was talking like I wasn't part of the millennial group. But that's what motivates me in regards to what is life going to look like for my kids, to make sure they're good, to make sure they're fully educated, to make sure my daughter can get the job that she wants because she's great at her job, not because what's the way I want to put it? That she doesn't get the job. I hope she gets a job, but doesn't get the job because she's a woman and they feel like she can't get it, or she can't live up to maybe being a general manager in a male-dominated industry as a woman. Like, I want those things that we think are normal to be to go away.
I think for me, my primary motivation for the work is certainly personal. I am Latina, a mother of two girls, a 10 and 13-year-old, who are, just like the light of my life. And I just want them to have a better world, one. The other thing, right, is that in terms of work, is that we can't hide anymore. We can't hide the fact that, racism is happening, at our doorstep. We can't hide, everyone's recording. We are on camera for everything, speak of TikTok, speaking of social media, I am motivated by the pressure and the urgency that the work has right now at our doorstep. And I don't think you can find any organization, whether nonprofit, education, for-profit, corporate, that can hide from taking responsibility, accountability for doing something for the work towards diversity, equity, anti-racism, social justice. You will look up anything, right? And to me, sometimes as a recruiter, sometimes I have an arm in human resources, right? When I'm interviewing people, they're also interviewing us. So I've seen a shift, right, in folks who are looking into organizations, asking us about what is our commitment. And to me, that motivates me. That says I'm not alone here in this work. Other folks are caring about this, want to do the work, and really expect transformational change in our systems, in our organization. So that keeps me motivated.
In terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, how are these topics viewed differently now than they were when you were in high school?
Okay, I'll start. So obviously every situation is different, but I do feel that, I'm going from teaching at Oxford High School, and when you look in the cafeteria, when you look at the hallways, when you see the interactions within the class, I see students being more inclusive and accepting than it was when I was in high school back in the 90s. I do see students just overall more comfortable showing who they truly are. And I love that. And when I look at who's here today and I see some schools that I recognize and stuff, I know there's all students watching and staff watching that I believe, that's their main goal. That is your main goal, to make people feel included, no matter their beliefs, no matter, just letting people be who they are and accepting who they are.
I was a little bit of me that still feels like things are still the same. They're just we talk about it more. There's more of a dialogue. I think there's still racism out there. There's sexism. We just talk about it more. You mentioned earlier, we have cameras, so we have it documented more. I give my example of when I go back to Amity High School to speak to them about diversity and stuff like that, like they still have issues there. They still treat gays and lesbians a certain way. They still treat Jewish people a certain way, Black people, Hispanic people a certain way. I think there is definitely the effort to try to change it. But I really, and listen, I can't speak for every single school. I'm only going by my personal experience. But I see the effort to try to create that change. But I think it really truly started with that dialogue, which really made it different only in the last maybe year and a half, where, I mean, Black Lives Matter movement has been around for a while, but really people weren't really listening to that until a year ago today. So I'm kind of torn on if what has changed or what hasn't changed. But I definitely feel like a lot is still the same. We just talk about it and we identify it more now.
I certainly echo your sentiment as well, Darren, because I think I also went to high school in the 90s. I went to Hartford Public High School at the height of like gang violence. And, here in Hartford, like I was just laser focused on graduating and getting the heck out of Hartford. Like that's what I wanted to do, right? Because I just knew there was like opportunities other places, because I just felt that, the violence in my community, like what was happening in the schools, right? Like teenage pregnancies were really at an all-time high. Like that really impacted, me, and I was scared, and I felt, I just felt like, I need saving, like out of here. But to Darren's point about the topics, I feel like the topics, were kind of like the same issues. The fact like the curriculum is still the same. I mean, the way that we teach at K through 12 is still kind of like, academic, remedial, high honors, who has AP classes, who doesn't have AP classes, right? Like when you think about where, the smart kids are in a space, when I enter some schools, it's still kind of the same structure and the same, procedures. I think one difference that I am seeing is definitely like what I shared earlier, is that you can't hide the issues anymore, right? Like people are more emboldened to talk about the issues, whether on the right or on the left of the ideas or perspectives or thoughts. Like people are more emboldened to talk about it, which I appreciate, because at one point I felt when I was younger and growing up, like you couldn't talk about that. You couldn't talk about race, you couldn't talk about religion, you couldn't talk about money, you couldn't talk about politics, right? And now I feel like there's a shift in that mentality. We're still working, especially with the young people. Young people, they're just like out there. They are unapologetic about their ideas, which I love. I think that's the pressure that those of us who are getting grown and grown folk really need, to be freed and be able to growing confidence about talking about the issues, so that we can get to the systemic problems that still exist, right? The way we're teaching, who we hire to teach. How many teachers of color do we have on our schools? How many principals of color do we have leading in our school districts, or superintendents, right? Like, how are we structured in a way that continues to affirm like our commitment to this work? Because unless that changes, we're going to continue to repeat the cycle of oppression, the cycle of racism, and that will continue unless we target those systems. I always share the example of like, if you go to the doctor and you have an infection of any kind, right? You are prescribed an antibiotic. If you're prescribed an antibiotic for a certain amount of days and you only take half of your antibiotic, you're still going to be infected. Like it's not going to go away, right? So like, half measures for diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, racial justice are not going to work. They're not going to get to the root of the infection, right? And heal us. So I think that's something for us to consider and to continue to think about, as you all, are also. Can I just say, I never attended a diversity conference at a high school. So this right here is amazing.
It's very interesting to definitely hear about how we have come forward like now than how it was before, but like there's still so much room for progress, because it is like a half measure. We're not fully done with that. And then one of our last questions is, if a student wanted to pursue a specific project or goal relating to improving diversity, equity, and inclusion within their school or community, what advice do you have on getting started with these kinds of projects?
So my advice would be to get a group of classmates or just yourself, if you have the ability and the drive, and find those staff members you feel can help you relay the importance of starting up the program of your choice or a project of your choice. And then just go to the top of the chain, right? And make an impassioned presentation, share the importance, share your passion. And I think that could help.
Jen, I appreciate your go to the top of the chain, because my first thought is to think about who is in power, who can actually make the decision, right, to affect whatever changes you're looking for in your school community. So that's the first question, is think about who is in power, who is the person that you have to have as an ally, who you have to have on your corner for the actual work, so that can help you, right, deliver that message to the community, whether it's just your school community or your district. I'm thinking go to your superintendent. You need a school district wide, right, like situation, because if what I'm seeing, right, is that schools here and there have great initiatives to do the work, but it's very siloed. And I think this work needs to be like kind of like cloaked in the thread and the fabric of all of our schools. So think about that. Think about who's in power. But I think you can also demand, right, for an equity action team. I think your group in itself, this group that put on this conference, is really great, right, to help continue to support those resources. That's really important. But I think also you want to be specific about the changes you want to see, right? So what is it? What are the things that you're seeing that are barriers that you think are not accessible or equitable? You know, is it that you want more teachers of color? Is it that your curriculum is not right? Is it that you want to see specific events? Is it that you want Darren and Jen to come and speak to your whole school community about like what it means to have, inclusion? What is it that you want, right? You need to have clarity before sort of demanding for a committee or a change or a shift. So I think those are the things that you want to see. You also want to see data, like what is happening, right, with the students of color or the teachers of color. How have they been promoted, and how are their success? Like you want to be working with that information so that you can get additional support from teachers and from your principals and from your superintendent on the work that really you're so eager to see in your community. And one thing, I'm sorry, Darren, one last thing is that
Okay.
sorry, one last thing is that I feel that has been great is the parent or your guardian's involvement. Your family involvement in the work is so critical. Your voice is really, really important, but the voice of your family is also important in this work. And when you have family and student pressuring, a school district or a school or your teachers, I got to tell you, you can move mountains.
So I think everyone kind of gave all the answers to that. And I'm just visualizing like, kind of what that would look like and maybe what I would do if I were in high school still. And I would think I may not know everybody, but I think I would probably go to people who are Asian and go to people who maybe I knew were Jewish or Black or Indian or Hispanic and try to get one of each. Some may say, no, I'm not interested, but try to get one of each and try to have that one meeting to say, hey, what can we come and create to create some type of awareness for diversity? That's the only thing I can sort of add to it. I will say this though, because it's always been a challenge. I mean, it's been a challenge in American history, just trying to create this change. That to don't give up. Don't let the no's discourage you. There's two things about people. They don't like change, but they also don't like the way things are. So it's kind of like a constant conflict. So if you're trying to do and you're not get discouraged, we already know we're having this discussion. Diversity is important. So keep that in your mind that no matter what the challenges are, to keep fighting through it, despite the no's or maybe some people who you want to be on by your side may not be fully invested. So continue to stick with it if there's any type of motivational words, because there's a lot of hard work to put into it. Many people have in over the course of the last few decades, and they'll tell you that it's not easy. But I motivate myself to realize, okay, what's my purpose in life, and what did I do in my day that makes me sleep better at night? So keep that same mindset when you guys go to your school on how you want to create change and what purpose and what type of legacy you want to leave behind at your school.
Thank you to you all. So before we take questions from the audience, do you guys have any last thoughts that you want to give to the students that are listening to this right now?
I have a quote that I'd like to share. And Toni Morrison is like my shero, and I love her work. And one of the quotes that always centers me in the work is, she says, the very function of racism is distraction. So when you are centered and moving this work forward, whether it's locally or at your school or in your community largely, be aware of the distractions that people will put in place for you to be successful in your work, because that in itself is a function of racism and systemic racism. So remember that.
So if anyone in the audience now has any questions, you can put them in the chat and I can look at the chat and ask the questions to our panelists. And also thank you for the great conversation. It was really enlightening and I got to learn a lot, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great.
So one of the questions that we have is from Melinda, and she asks, did you have any mentors that led you through your leadership journey?
I guess I when I saw the mentorship, I just was like, yes. Because I've had so many mentors help me just along my career and just life, and which helped me become a leader. And there's I want to give two examples, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So I'm going to give the two examples, but very, very short. One will be is find somebody who you look up to, someone who's very successful or has been successful, because they can teach you what they've done right or what they've done wrong. And also surround yourself around friends that will make you better. Because if your friends don't encourage you to pursue your dream or help you get good grades or tell you when you're doing something wrong, then they're not your true friends. That also, I include that friendship in the mentorship as well. And my last quick example would just be is I had the pleasure of doing Kobe Bryant's final season in the NBA when I was at ESPN. And one of the coolest things Kobe Bryant told me was the fact that he met with Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson told him that James Brown was his mentor. He looked up to him. He learned all the goods and bad things that James Brown did. And he was like, Kobe, who do you look up to? Who's that star that you want to be just like? And Kobe was like, Michael Jordan. And that very next season, his second year in the NBA, was in November, I believe he said, or October or December. He went up to Michael Jordan and became friends with him. He's like, can you teach me your moves or what you do, your fadeaway, the way you eat, the way you work out, the mindset you need to bring to the game? And there's a reason why Michael Jordan still to this day says Kobe Bryant stole all my moves. And why Kobe Bryant was so successful, because he found that mentor who he looked up to, who was successful. And that's why mentorship is very important in leading me in my career path.
Yeah, I would say I also have too many to actually, I'm lucky to say I have too many to actually mention. And, it was just Teacher Appreciation Week the other week. And I graduated high school 25 years ago, and I still, every Teacher Appreciation Week, I send those teachers from middle school, high school, my coaches, letters thanking them each year, because they truly helped shape the teacher, coach, leader that I am today. So those definitely are my mentors and who helped shape who I am.
I certainly echo both of your sentiments. Yes, no man is an island. I am not here, on my own effort. So I'm definitely standing on the shoulders of my ancestors and those that came before me who have paved the way for my success as a leader in this work. So I strongly encourage you to find those people in your life and ensure that they are definitely pouring into you so that you can in the future pour into other people.
Also, we have been asked if you could put your contact info in the chat so people can reach out to you if they have any questions or if they want to just get some more information on how they can have diversity, equity, and inclusion at their school.
There you go. If he puts it in, you could reach out.
Well, that's the end of our panel. I want to thank all of our guest panelists. You guys did amazing. We got to learn so much from you. I took away so much, and I'll definitely be bringing that back. Now we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 10:55, and we're going to have some students do a inclusion tiles exercise. So thank you again to the panelists.
Did you get his?
Thank you for having me. Be sure to reach me on Twitter or Instagram. I respond back to all DMs if you guys need any help.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your conference. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much.
My name is Connor Willett, and I'm from Connecticut Regional High School. I'm also with Makai Watson and Chris Barrett, who also attend Connecticut, as well as Zach and Avery, who are from Oxford High School. And now I'm going to pass it on to Avery.
Imagine what Special Olympics Japan Scott is in nearly 8,000 Scott in 49 United States, the District of Columbia, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico.
Excellent job, Avery. Did you know 95% of representatives reported increased participation of students with intellectual disabilities in school activities, leading to more inclusive attitudes school-wide? 100% of teachers said the UCF, yes, Unified Champion School program, eased the transition from middle to high school by fostering a sense of belonging, building relationships, and providing continuity for students over time. 2/3, 65% of high school students stated that the strong relationships they developed with their peers with intellectual disabilities was one of the best parts of participating in the UCS program. Also, 90% of representatives indicated that the United Champion Schools program reduces bullying, teasing, and the use of offensive language in school.
Inclusion, promoting the personal development of athletes and partners, developing social and sports skills while focusing on abilities rather than disabilities. Creating inclusion and equal bonds among athletes and partners, generating positive perceptions of athletes, serving as a platform to inform the community about people with ID, building parent support of advocacies, networks, and connecting with local organizations, schools, governments, etc. for support. Unified partner, Ukraine. This team includes everyone. We play as one, we work together. That is the best way for unified teams. According to Special Olympics survey, as a result, participating in unified sports, 83% of reported that they do more activities in their community.
Right now, we're going to do an inclusion tiles activity, which will help you learn about different types of inclusion. This activity shows the different paths of inclusion, and right now we're going to break into groups so we can all try it together. A link's going to be posted in the chat so that each school can do it individually, or if you're by yourself, you can see how it works. We're going to spend about 5 minutes doing this with your groups, and then we'll come back and continue the slideshow.
I'm just going to give everyone a 1-minute warning for the inclusion tiles, then we will get back to the presentation. All right, so welcome back. We all hope everyone had a great experience with those tiles. If anyone wants a hard copy of these tiles, you can email Miss Horn and she will gladly give you a pair. If Miss Horn, you could put your email in the chat for everyone to access. And for the rest of the presentation, we'll go over each unified sports class and the impact of unified on the students. So at Connecticut Regional High School, during the year, our unified program participates in many activities. Before we begin any activity, we warm up and stretch as a team. We play soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, and we'll do volleyball as well as track and field in the spring. However, we have recently begun to play wiffle ball and cornhole. Everybody in the class always encourages each other to do their best.
Hi, I am Zach from Oxford Unified Sports Team, and our team is 9th grade through the transition to the 18 to 21-year-old program, and both junior seniors, partners who apply to the program can become part of the program if they are accepted. We meet 4 times a week because one day we don't have that class. In the morning, we have first period every morning, and we play soccer, basketball, volleyball, and kickball. And our main things we try to do during class is to be inclusive, supportive, and have a fun environment. And it's not just a team that we have, it's more like a family that comes together and you enjoy meeting new friends and new people. And that's a picture of us coming back from one of our kickball games.
And I'm going to start off with the impact of unified. Throughout unified sports, I have created so many lasting friendships with my classmates.
Unified sports helped me in so many different ways. It has allowed me to meet a lot of new people and learn about how they live their lives in ways that are different from mine. Unfortunately, Chris could not be here, so I'm going to be reading what unified sports means to him. To Chris, unified has helped him build team working skills.
And Leah could not be here, so I'm going to read her part. I hold unified sports very close to my heart. It's like a second family. I have never been with a group of people so caring, thoughtful, and fun. Unified sports has given me the opportunity to put myself out there and meet all of these amazing people. I wouldn't trade unified sports for the world. I said, unified means to me. Unified sports means to me that no matter who you are, you will be accepted and you will be accepted for who you are as a person. If you feel excluded elsewhere, unified will make you feel included.
I said unified is always fun and has me make my awesome friend.
Anybody who's in this presentation that's not a part of Unified should definitely join. Unified Sports is a great program that everyone should look to join. Long-lasting friendships and amazing experiences are provided by this outstanding program. If you could not be a part of your school's Unified program, that is all right. To support your team, you can always attend games and events. If you have any questions about Unified Sports, you can contact Mr. Hale and Mrs. Horn.
Thank you for everyone listening to our Unified Sports presentation. And now we are going to pass it on to Melinda in the Student Equity Advisory Board.
So, hi everybody. So we're just going to be going back into kind of what the Student Equity Advisory Board is. And like Connor mentioned, we are going to give a presentation like Unified Sports did for our specific group and what we cover. So first, let me share my screen. So just to give a rough outline, so Kruti and Heather are also part of this board, and they will be presenting alongside with me for this presentation. So the Student Equity Advisory Board mainly focuses on tackling equity issues within Connecticut, and we will be getting into some of the work that we've been doing within our individual groups on the different equity issues within Connecticut.
So first, we want to start off by defining diversity, equity, and inclusion, because a lot of times these terms can be combined together, even though they have distinct meanings. So first, equality versus equity. Equality is treating every student the same. Equity is making sure every student has the support they need to be successful, which may mean having to provide individuals who have more of a disadvantage with more resources. And in the picture that you see on the screen, equality shows that everyone gets the same resource, but it doesn't allow each individual to be successful. While in equity, everyone is equally successful, even though it may mean some people get more resources than others. And that is a key difference to identify. Next is diversity versus inclusion. Diversity can be variation in personal, physical, and social characteristics, such as one's gender, ethnicity, age, and education. And inclusion can be procedures used to make everyone feel like they're welcome and they can share their thoughts and feel accepted and comfortable, and they're ready to share their opinions and thoughts without hesitation. Diversity can be present, but it doesn't always mean that it leads to inclusion. Inclusion needs to be created and that environment needs to be applied at the school, because there can be diversity, but the inclusion can be completely absent. But when there's also inclusion, it makes the perfect match. Next, we have this poll that we're going to open, and we want you to describe in one word what equity means to you.
So what you just need to do is you need to put this URL into your browser, or you can text this number and have your message to this using this message, and we just want to hear what you think equity means to you. And this could be based off the definitions that we have given, or it could just be off of your own personal experience. So it'll give people some time to respond. So if anybody is having trouble with completing the poll, then please type it in the chat and maybe we can try to help you complete the poll. So on the screen, we can see what some people are saying. So fairness, definitely. I think, as Kruti mentioned before, kind of having a fair playing ground for everybody is very important. And also, someone wrote down helping people in need, and that is important.
We see another fair.
Fairness. Mhm.
Equality is a good one. Like they both work together. Like you need to have equality and equity.
So we'll give people maybe a few more seconds to put in any responses if they have not yet. So it looks like we've come to a consensus that it's mainly having a fair playing ground for everybody kind of included. And now we're going to be going into kind of what the Student Equity Advisory Board is about, and I will hand it to Heather.
Hi, my name is Heather Gomez, and I'm a part of the CAC Student Equity Advisory Board, currently a sophomore at Westbrook High School. Here on the screen is a shortened version of the video created by the members of the CAC Student Equity Advisory Board, where students give insight into the topics of discrimination and equity.
Being a part of the Student Equity Advisory Board is important to me because in this group, we focus on social injustices and what we can do to help and fix what's going on in our state.
For me, it was very important to become a member of the Student Equity Board solely to get perspective. When I talk about perspective, I mean it in the way of looking at social issues through the eyes of others that are not like me.
I wanted to spread awareness about the inequity in Connecticut.
Growing up, sometimes we got comments where I sounded white to some people. Being 6 or 7 or 8 in elementary school and being told that you don't sound how you look is very confusing for someone who's trying to learn as well.
I transferred from Hartford Public School when I was younger, and the other students would bully me and pick on me, saying that because I'm darker than everyone else, I would never be pretty and I can never be as smart as them coming from a Hartford Public School. It's hard for people to tell you that you will never be enough because of where you come from and what you look like.
As an Asian American, sometimes I do face some racial prejudice. So sometimes people either do not understand the cultures I come from or the types of traditions that I practice at home. Even though we might live our lives differently, or we may practice different religions, or we might be part of different groups of people, it really helps just to understand that there are different ways to live and neither one is right or wrong.
As a student athlete of color, I have experienced prejudice on the playing field. Playing away games in certain towns, we would feel as if we didn't even have a chance to win, and this wasn't determined by who was the better team. Most times, I felt a subtle hint of discrimination. I get really nervous whenever I see a cop car parked to the side of the highway. Or even if I'm going the speed limit and I'm doing the right thing, I still get nervous because I don't know if my skin color is dangerous to them.
I feel like people only do things when it's happening to them. But if you know you have a certain amount of privilege and you can do something to change something that you see, an inequality and injustice, do something about it.
Not only students, but also teachers need to start believing in, the people around them. I think one of the best feelings is when you have someone believing in you and that they believe that you can do anything. One of the best things when you're a kid is to hear the fact that you can be anything that you want to be.
As a collective, we all deserve to appreciate and learn from one another, and we also deserve to give other people the same respect. If we want to be heard, we should give them the same respect and let them have their voice spoken.
We humans have the ability to evolve and transcend our limits, as we've always done. Things that we have thought to not be possible hundreds of years ago, we now do it on the regular. Cars, airplanes. So I think that even when it comes to social issues like this, I think we have the ability to pave a way to a better future.
I want everyone to know that treating others the way you want to be treated is key, especially in the world we live in today.
I hope for our generation, we make the change that we're trying to make. We right now are doing protests, we're doing so many different things, and we're leading towards that change.
As a generation, I can definitely say that we are more inclusive, we're a lot more accepting, and we're a lot more understanding. I've noticed, through my personal experience and in my school alone, we've had people come out and, they were met with, applause and happiness and, acceptance, and just told, wow, you're super brave, I'm here for you.
Living during this time with all these political movements and also the social justice movements, it's showing young people and even people from other generations that change is possible. We just have to take the initiative to make it happen.
This needed to happen so that people can really open their eyes. I feel like people didn't really understand the severity of what was going on until George Floyd, and this year really opened up a lot of people's eyes.
This past summer, when America underwent a racial reckoning, it kind of jump-started my own reflection into my privilege. One of the most important things you can do is listen, right? It's to listen to people who don't have the same opportunities, the people who have different backgrounds and different lived experiences than you do. Because I, deeply believe in the power of empathy and how empathy drives progress, and being able to listen to the stories of other students who do not have access to the same materials that I do here at my school has really shaped the way that I see equity in Connecticut.
Even as young as I am, I just think about what if my children have to go through the same thing, But that's why I'm here, and that's why I have to speak, and put my voice out there before, I just want to create a better future for not only me, but the people that come after me.
So that was just a brief introduction to kind of where our group started. And from this, we're going to go into the work that we actually do. And just to note, that was only a shortened video of our main Student Equity Advisory Board video. And if you would like to see the full video, we will be posting the link in the chat following this presentation. So now we are going to get into what we actually do, so addressing the inequities within Connecticut. So we were split into a couple groups to tackle certain issues. And one of the groups that I'm going to be presenting about is the religious discrimination education. So obviously, religious discrimination has been present within our country and within the world for a very long span of time. And right now in Connecticut, there is some kind of tension between the equal allocation of resources and time between religious and non-religious groups, especially in terms of clubs and after school activities. And there's also obstacles to teaching about religion, in contrast to kind of so there are two ways in teaching religion, as it kind of sounds like we're saying the same thing, because teaching religion with kind of this emphasis on religious beliefs, or teaching religion kind of more for like learning and for the students to gain knowledge about different cultures. So it's very hard for teachers to kind of have that barrier between actually promoting a religion or just being indifferent about it. And this is important because obviously you want to create a safer space for everybody, including people who are non-religious and people of different religious beliefs, and to create overall more inclusion within the community. And so the action plan for this specific group is, so what they did was they used a statewide survey to gather opinions of both religious and non-religious students and administrators on how religion is dealt with, or inclusion and acceptance along religious beliefs is dealt with within their schools. And there are also some student interviews that were being conducted to kind of like get more of a context of how people felt about this topic. And so their main action plan was to draft clear policies that schools can define in their handbooks regarding religious discrimination. So to make sure that the policies they have in place are more clear and more kind of like laid out in front. So people who read the handbook are able to kind of know that these are the rules in place and that they should be followed. And also another group that the Student Equity Advisory Board kind of has is tackling the issue of sports access to quality coaches, facilities, and technology within different schools. And there is an equity in access to coaches and these different types of resources within different schools, mainly due to the fact that there is an inequity between like who gets funding and kind of who lives in the neighborhood, who pays more property tax, and different kinds of issues such as that. And this is really different in different towns, where some towns have more maintained facilities while other towns don't have the resources to do so. So this is an important issue because, as mentioned in the slide, and this is that like coaches, technology, and facilities are basically the groundwork for a student's education, and they help students who maybe aren't. So for like coaches, they act as mentors in sports, and they're very important for the lives of student athletes, and they may be the reason why a student may or may not get into a specific sports college that they wish to get into, or a certain profession, or go professional. And technology and facilities are obviously very important for all students to give them the resources to succeed. And with more advanced technology and more maintained facilities, it is obviously a better school environment for everybody. So the action plan that this committee has is basically trying to make sure that there are like workshops for coaches to make sure that they are treating their players equally. If it is along gender lines or along the lines of like race and ethnicity. And also to make sure that schools have regular inspections to update technology and equipment. Along with this, they have several plans to kind of regionalize areas into 6 or 7 schools per one track and ice rink. And this is along the different leagues and sports leagues in Connecticut. And also for live streams, as COVID has kind of like spurred this opportunity for live streams. And this is a positive kind of thing that this committee wants to continue doing because it can help students for college recruitment. So now Heather will be presenting the implicit bias towards the LGBTQ plus group and what they are doing.
I think Heather had to quickly log out because of Wi-Fi issues, so he's coming back.
So while he's doing that, I could just present his slide. So implicit bias towards LGBTQ, obviously, when we talk about this subject, we kind of want to define the different groups. And for the hetero-cis normative, it's basically the assumption that being straight or being cisgender is the norm, and anything that does not fit that is gender. So basically, like, there's this perception that if you're straight, it's like the normal thing to do, and if you're not, then you shouldn't, that then you're different and you should be like categorized in this different group. And that is basically ingrained in like schools and different religious institutes and also athletic facilities. And it's really hard to get that notion out of people's heads. And this issue is very important to this committee and overall in general because you want to prevent the use of discriminatory rhetoric and ideologies that set the like foundation for unsafe environments for LGBTQ adolescents, and mainly because these people are trying to kind of find their way in the world, and if they're constantly being repressed or they do not feel comfortable in the environment they're in, it's kind of hard to accept themselves and like love themselves in general. So the action plan that this committee has is to basically increase exposure for LGBTQ plus voices and issues. So their kind of like main thing that they want to push is to make sure that there are more gay and straight alliances across Connecticut schools, to make sure that there are policies, health outlets, and other resources to protect these individuals, and also bringing about the idea to recognize one's bias and stereotypes so that people who maybe have been in the past or who are straight or are, I guess, considered the standard in this hetero cis normative, like, it's important for them to understand that there are different types of people, and just acknowledging those differences is important for acknowledging that these people also face some discrimination.
So the next topic that we're going to talk about is gender bias and racial disparities across the state. And what issues has this committee found in Connecticut? So we have noticed that gender biases lead to inequities in funding, coaching, and overall environment. And a lot of times when we were discussing this within our group, we noticed that there was not a fair amount of resources given to the female sports as there were to male sports, and vice versa. And there were also racial disparities are prominent, and they lead to inequality within teams in the overall sport. And this not only affects the sport and how the team does, but it also affects how the environment is of the school and how a person feels on that team and their motivation to continue playing that sport. Why is this issue, this committee addressing important? Gender biases and racial disparities should not be stopping certain students from getting more opportunities than others. So a lot of times there's just this disadvantage that some students are faced with. And like Melinda mentioned in a previous slide, they aren't able to get the Division I college scholarship that they want because of these disparities and not being able to excel as much as they should. And many times the issues impact a student's success in the sport and their motivation to continue playing the sport, because it can be hard seeing like the bias and how you're being treated differently, which could cause a lack of motivation. And what action plan does this committee have on solving the issues related to this topic? We plan on bringing this issue to the state and to individual school districts to bring awareness, because a lot of times the school districts are not aware of this problem, but it needs to be brought up and people need to be made aware of it so that solution can be reached and this problem can be solved. Also, creating a district and statewide plan to reduce instances of gender bias that impact important decisions, because if there's a statewide plan, if there's a guideline that people need to follow, that schools need to follow, it will create structure and prevent the events of bias when there is funding or technology or different resources being provided. And finally, host workshops for coaches, teachers, and students to address the racial disparities and overcome the biases, because communication is one of the best ways to solve this issue, and to talk to each other and for coaches and teachers and students to interact, it will really help overcome this issue, and the students will be able to express their concerns and the coaches can implement this to make the school space a better environment.
So now on to our last group, because I don't believe Heather is here.
Oh, I'm back here. I'm back.
Okay, so
Yeah.
something about the teaching, coaching, and administrating shortages in minorities Connecticut.
There was a little technical difficulty, but I'm back here. So I'll be talking about teaching, coaching, and administration shortages and minorities. This issue that this committee has found in Connecticut is seen with how many experience microaggressions in the workplace and schools. Not only that, but also there's this poor minority faculty to minority student ratio found in many, school and workplace environments. Now, why the reason this committee found important to address this issue is because without people of color in higher positions of education, we find that students will not be introduced to different perspectives, regarding different social issues or political issues. And on top of that, students aren't prepared for the increasingly diverse workforce outside of, the education system. And then the action plan that this committee has found relating to this topic is seen with how there should be more of this implementation of student teacher equity groups in more schools, also to have constant bias checks, and also simply spreading awareness on this issue, whether it's through, just a conference like this one, or simply just talking about it in the classroom. And then the last point would be the encouragement of hiring a diverse administration and staff, in all school institutions.
So now we will be moving on to kind of the key steps towards taking action. Due to our time shortage, we'll be trying to get through this section quickly. So Heather will be presenting about the key steps towards taking action.
Yeah, so the first key step we see here is identifying the problem. And the question you want to be asking yourself in this portion of developing an action would be to ask yourself, what do you want to solve and why is it important to you and others around you? And by doing that, we go to our next key step, which is investigate and research, where we find ourselves, or we have to ask ourselves, what do you need to find out and how will this help you solve the problem? And then we find ourselves in a third key step, which would be planning, where we should ask ourselves, with the research and knowledge that we've gathered, how will you carry out your solution? And then set deadlines and determine important goals and benchmarks. And setting these deadlines and determining important goals and benchmarks, one is able to find themselves throughout the process and keep themselves in check and ensure that the actions that one will partake in won't go downhill. Then the next action is seen with the action portion of one's plan. And the questions you should be asking yourself in this step would be, what is your solution and how will you know that it is effective? You want to find yourself having a firm solution and knowing what you have to do. And in doing that, you want to set yourself measures to calculate how effective you're being to your environment. And then the last key step is seen with reflection, where you should be asking yourself, what's the most important knowledge and skills that you've learned during the process, and how did you positively impact the people involved in your solution? The reflection portion of taking action goes hand in hand with setting measures to calculate how effective you are being. Some points that should be hit when reflecting back is how you personally have changed. How did your environment change? Are those around you seeking to demolish this issue or spread awareness? And is there anything else you can do to further attack the issue in your environment?
So now we will be skipping some of the polls due to some time constraints, but we just wanted to leave everybody with this last kind of like template or kind of solution pathway that they could do. And it kind of goes off of the steps of taking action that Heather discussed earlier. So this is just a work plan template or your action plan template. So if you're trying to kind of solve a certain equity issue or any sort of issue within your school environment or within your community, feel free to use this template to kind of organize how you're going to do it. And we will be posting a link to this document in the chat after this presentation is over. So if you really want to use it, then you can use it for your different goals. And thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We're really glad to be presenting to everybody in this conference. It was really a pleasure for Kruti, Heather, and I. and we will be handing it over to Eric for some closing remarks.
Right. First of all, let me just go ahead and give a mad shout out to the board and all of the hard work that you all have given. The fact that this is happening and the fact that it is happening on the anniversary, 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's death, it speaks volumes about the work that you all are taking on to just have this be a place that's safe for everyone, that everyone feels heard, respected, honored for who it is and what they bring to the table. So just real quick, we're gonna go lightning. I just want you to type in the chat real quick, like, what is your number one takeaway? What is your number one takeaway from today? Maybe it was something I said, maybe it was something that maybe Elsie, Jen, or Darren said earlier, or maybe it was from the Unified Sports, or maybe it was from the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Board. Like, what is it? So Joe has taken away the ripple effect. Yes, you can be a ripple effect. Literally, every single moment that you breathe, you get to be a ripple effect. Melinda says, be that tidal wave. Yeah, if you look, go big or stay home. Like, if you're gonna get out here, have an impact in the world, don't just be a mere peep, but be that ripple effect that causes a tidal wave. Give 110%. Y'all, everybody who's wreaking havoc is giving 100. It's time for us to show up and give 110. Darren, when he was talking about his work with diversity, yeah, and it's so empowering for me to see other people who are in totally different arenas. He's in the sports arena, and to know that people are out there of a like mind making that difference, that's huge. Ripple effect in every room, yeah. Everywhere you show up, create a ripple effect. I don't care if you're in Dunkin' Donuts and it's the person who's taking your money or handing you your coffee, cause that ripple effect. And 110%, Michael DeVito, love it. Awesome. So I'm just super grateful that you are here today. And I'm gonna close this out by reading a poem. And I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna read the poem first, and then I'm gonna tell you where I'm going with it. The name of the poem is called To Risk. To laugh is to risk appearing a fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your ideas and dreams before a crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To live is to risk dying. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken, because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing does nothing, has nothing, is nothing. He may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he cannot learn, feel, change, grow, or live. Changed by his servitude, he is a slave who has forfeited all freedom. Only a person who risks is free. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. And the realist adjusts the sails. Here's what I want to say to you to close this out. There are two types of people in this group right now. You have the 97%ers and the 3%ers. Let me explain. The 97%er is the person who comes to this, they're like, man, that was great. Darren was awesome. The panel was great. The boards were great. Everything was amazing. Art was goofy. I learned a lot. And then you walk away from your screen and you do nothing different. But then there are those who are 3%ers. And the 3%ers are the people who will take one thing that they learned from today and go out in their life and literally implement it. They will take that risk to stand for something that's important to them. They will take that risk to even, maybe they may look foolish to everybody else, but that risk is worth it, especially when it comes to accepting, embracing, and celebrating the diversity of us all. Unity starts with you, literally and figuratively. And I'm going to say this last thing and we're going to take it out of here. How many of you would like to leave a legacy? If you would like to leave a legacy in this lifetime, just type me in the chat. If you would like to leave some type of legacy, I don't care what type of legacy is. Maybe it's with your community, your school. Maybe it's just with your little brother and sister. So here's what I'm going to say about a legacy. A legacy is not something you leave when you die. A legacy should be something you leave every single time you walk out of a room. So my question is, when will your legacy start? Will it start as soon as you jump off of this Zoom? Or will you wait? Y'all, it has been such an honor to work with each and every one of you. If you're gonna go out here and start your legacy today, just type legacy in the chat. I just want to see where my legacy peeps are. I'm a legacy. I'm a living legacy, living legacy. Let's go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. That is it, everyone. Now is where the real work begins, where you go out into your life and bring these ideas, these thoughts, these new moments alive. Y'all, on behalf of everyone on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board, and everyone who's been a part of this, CAS, y'all, go out there and be living your legacy. Hit the music. See y'all later. Or do I need to turn this over to somebody, Melinda, Connor, anybody, Sharice, do I need to turn? I feel like I'm like just cutting y'all off. Like, okay, so we got music. All right, y'all. Let's get out of here. Let's go transform the world. Yay! Great work, y'all.
But am I really gonna hide forever, over and over again? I hear your voice in my head. Let your light shine for all to see.